Hello, wonderful homie. So in this video, I want to talk you through the process that I use to flip pretty simple loops into full compositions for me to release just on my own, but also as beats that artists tend to use. That's kind of like an important caveat. I don't say this enough, but like every beat I've ever made is for my catalog. The fact that they get sales placements, win awards, anything else you've ever seen them accomplish is simply a byproduct that I think is great. It's a-okay, but like the most important thing to me is like, do I like it? And maybe that's like not the creative like thought process for everybody, but that's what works for me. Not because I've like winnowed it down to like this entrepreneurial process, but because I'm a creative human being. So I've got to find the most effective way to do that. That being said, it's really fun for me to do this with loops because for one, I get to collaborate with my homies. So the one I'm going to be showing you today, I'm going to be breaking down a track that I made with a homie from Dope named I Feel Void, and it's awesome. So there's a few reasons I really like doing stuff with loops, and for one, it's one of those interesting things that helps you increase quality and quantity, because like collaboration always leads to like a more quality product. You rarely collab and like get something worse out of it than if you had just done it by yourself. That basically never happens in like any human endeavor anywhere. So that's really, really cool. But then it literally like increases quantity because you're splitting the workload, so it allows you to just get more done, and that's really something I love about it. The other thing I like is that it allows you to extend your network, and then it allows you to make that extended network more robust through like your constant engagement with it, like constantly tapping in with your homies, constantly working with them, and constantly like publishing that work, and that's really dope too. And then the last thing I really like about it is that it helps you expand your horizons as a creative. The thing I like about using loops really is that like I can use stuff that I literally couldn't make, and it's not even like in my own genre. The most fun part is when it gets outside my genre, which is what this was today. As a matter of fact, let me stop yapping and let me just let you hear the guitar loop to start, because this is crazy. So let's make that dry really quick with no effects. And so my effects stack was pretty simple outside of the stuff that I had on my melody bus, and it's nothing too serious, just a little bit of compression and equalization and exciting, really just equalization and exciting these days on my melody bus. A little bit more equalization right here with another neutron. The console is not even filled with anything other than equalizers. And then a little bit of neoverb, which gets automated, and we'll talk about that later. The real magic, if you can even call it that, again, just pretty basic effects going on here. Neutron equalizer for the high pass right there at the bottom, with a little bit of dynamic equalization that was going on. So if we can go ahead and start turning these effects back on, that dynamic equalization happening on that analog shelf on the top end is literally just automated on, so that when another thing that comes in for this melody or this entire beat comes in, it will reduce the volume of that high end. So that's really dope. And then I have this radiator right here with these settings right here, and it was just to add a little bit of saturation, warmth really to that guitar to make it sound a little bit more, you know, tasty. And then another neutron equalizer with a little bit more of that dynamic equalization. And actually, as a matter of fact, I think this might have been the one that was automated in order to help it sit a little bit better with some of the drums and other melodic elements that I added to this. And then I had just a basic kind of like end chain clipper that I have for everything. It's just a meter. I literally put this on every track when I fully mix something to release on my own DSPs and stuff like that. It's just a meter, VCA, control, and clipper, and that just has to do with my new mixing strategy, which I will be making a video about very, very soon. So let's just give this last 8 bars another listen, and we'll bypass test it. No effects. Effects. That's just so good. The 14 drum kit has a bunch of sounds for my placements and TV syncs too. Now I'm not entirely sure why you don't have it yet, because it's free, and besides that, it's lifetime updates, and those are 100% free too. And you get access to my 14 letter, where I send you free gems on how to actually make money with your beats by being a valuable producer. So here's a nice list of a bunch of other perks you'll get so that we can just get back to the cook up. If you're interested in the sauce, peep the link in the description below. So I think one of the important things to understand with using loops in collaboration situations is that you want to start with a very simple idea, no matter what it is, no matter how grand of an idea you've got going on in your head, and it can get grand, and that's awesome. This video is not about flipping like those overly complex samples. I'm talking about like turning a dope starter into an expansive piece of music, not just like, you know, looping it over and over again. Even though, for example, the basis of this track is looping it over and over again, the sample, I didn't really even change it. We don't want to really destroy the work they've done. It's a collaborative effort. Why would I feel Void go through the effort of playing this dope guitar melody only for me to chop it to shit because of my ego, because I've got to be like, oh, I flipped it? Like, that's stupid, right? And so it's the same thing here. I'm not going for anything ridiculous like a super Mike Dean bass line, even though you'll see there's an interesting bass line in this beat. I'm not going for super crazy drum programming at the start, even though you'll see that it's got a pretty dope, robust drum programming kind of progression going on in this track. The key is to start with simple ideas. So the way I did this in this track is I just started with this very simple 808 pattern right here. Really, really, really simple stuff. So I'll give you a listen right now. It's just following the chord progression. And that 808 is from my 14 drum kit volume 3, which I give out to my email list all the time. Volume 1 and volume 2 you get immediately upon joining my email list. Volume 3 gets blasted out the same way volume 2 used to get blasted out, and we'll keep doing. Volume 4 should be dropping sometime later this year. It's awesome, good stuff. With my 808, the only effects I added was this EQ, so a little bit of high passing on the low end, and that's just kind of how I mix my 808s to get them to hit good on all speakers. A little bit of low passing can go a really long way. A little bit of dipping from about 200 hertz, and that's to reduce some of that power from that low end to help it sit in the mix a little bit more. And what's interesting is that actually helps me gain loudness at the end of my mix. And then a little bit of just a high-end shelf right here to roll off, because it is kind of like, it has a lot of high-end resonance in this 808, so I tamed that just a little bit with that equalizer. And then everyone's favorite plugin, I got a little bit of radiator just to add some warmth. Once I had the 808 laid down, I basically just put down some drums on top of that. Super simple. So first I had this snare pattern. It's just literally hitting on the 3 every time. And then I had this accent snare pattern going, and then we bring in this kick. So let's give that a listen. And also, both these drum sounds came from the Centerfold Drum Kit Volume 4, which actually is only available to people in dope, but Volume 3 has a lot of these sounds too, and you can find that in the description below. So together with the 808, here's what that sounds like. And then we'll bring in the melody. And the she really starting to come together. So the last thing I did was just to basically finish up the drum programming with a few of like my metallic instruments. So just a hi-hat, a square, and then a dope little like cash register percussive element. So the first thing was that cash register. I just love this. This is kind of like my new tag a little bit. It's just an effect that I like. So good. And then I added this triangle with this pattern right here. Just on the 4. 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. And actually I forgot that I had an open hat. 2 2. So that's how that open hat goes. And then we bring in the hi-hat, and that's just simple stuff. And then we put it in context with the rest of the drums, and it's just like From here, I really sat with this track for a while. Like, I just had this like bigger idea in my mind, so I just left it alone for a little bit and I came back to it. When I'm collabing, I really avoid like destroying the loop, basically. So like bringing it into a sampler and like chopping it up. That used to be my sampling style, and I still do it. And I'm not trying to like neg anybody for doing that, but it's like I tend to avoid it unless it just makes sense, unless my spirit is just like, oh, like we really gotta chop this one up. Otherwise, like I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna literally just let it rock, especially when it's a starter like this. So the thing that I did was just like, so I literally went to Splice and I just started clicking through vocals, like, and I think I did this on stream, deadass. A couple minutes later, I stumbled upon this, bro. And I'm gonna turn the effects off real quick so you could just hear it. It's like static enough with the chord movements that it doesn't really violate the melodic progression of everything else, and it just fits so perfect to that. Let me just show you a couple of the effects that I added. So the first thing was this neutron equalizer, again, just high passing. I like to clean stuff up. Radiator, I mean, hey, water's wet, the Pope is Catholic, we're using radiator for saturation, you know, gives it a little bit of that oomph and that color. And it's really cool because it has this awesome vocal warmer preset that's nice, and then you can just tweak the mix, and it's really good stuff. I love Radiator. And then I added a little bit of Neoverb, one of my favorite reverb plugins. It's Neoverb, and Luxverb is really good. And Luxverb stock to FL Studio as well. I tried Luxverb. I wasn't really getting what I wanted. Neoverb just kind of has these spectrographic controls that make it a lot easier for me. I think Luxverb is literally set up the same way as Neoverb. Neoverb is a little bit more spectrographic, and of course it's made by Isotope, so it's going to be a little bit more quality and a little bit more like locked in for your mixing goals. But it's the bright vocal chamber preset, and then I kind of tweaked it a little bit. So if we give it a listen with all the effects on, so let's bypass test it. So we'll turn it off, all the effects. Now let's turn them on. It's just bigger and more colorful. So now let's listen to it in the context of everything else. I really thought the track was done after this, and I was like, okay, it might really be done. It's got that pop vibe. We'd be good to go if we just arranged it out, you know, did a standard hook with the vocals, did a verse with just the guitars. But, you know, at the same time, I'm still like you know what I'm saying? I'm a producer. I can overthink. I can be a little ego driven. I can want to put more of myself that might be necessary in the track. I wanted to like make sure that I wouldn't do that to the detriment of the track, which is why I just waited for a little bit. But then I don't know what I was on the day I came back to the track, but I added some absolutely mind-blowing sauce. This is my favorite part of the track, and if you've heard the snippet, like, this was like everyone's favorite. This has been everyone's favorite part, and I'm like, I'm so glad I took the time to just like sit with this piece and do this. So I did kind of like my version of like a Mike Dean synth breakdown at the end, and I was trying to emulate Mike Dean. I had to start with a synth bass, so this is what I had. Then I was like, okay, that's cool. How can we make this a little bit more interesting? So I came in here and I added these effects. The first thing I added was just a neutron equalizer, and it's the same thing we've been doing so far. Just I like to high pass my bass lines a little bit. Gross beat gating is where things get interesting. So I added this gating effect with gross beat, and it's literally just a stock preset. It's the 1/2 beat gate. And so if we turn that on, and then I just added some radiator, and you already hear how that added with these settings. So then I was like, what could I add next to the bridge section to make it sound dope? Then I thought, well, I could just lay down the vocal on top of that. So here's what it sounded like with the vocals added in on top of that bass line with all the effects. Now, I was like, that's cool. That's actually great for real, but I just needed more. And so what I did was I added this patcher stack of these following effects right here. So I added a convolver with this white noise setting. So convolution is like a reverb effect. That's the simplest way I could explain it. Added radiator, you know what I'm saying? I give it a little bit of that warmth. It's literally just the vocal warmer preset again. And then I added fruity limiter so that I could compress it, basically add some New York parallel compression to the signal. If we listen to it with that preset turned on, here's what it sounds like. So the next thing I did was go back to Splice, you know what I'm saying? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I found this drum loop right here. So here's what it sounds like, and I'll show you the effects as we listen to it. Pretty simple, high passing. RC20 with the VHS setting, and I turned off the noise. And then I made this drum glue setting for radiator to kind of squeeze out a little bit of those dynamics. Add some warmth to it is probably a better way to say it. Okay, So then there's one more cool thing I did. I added the kick into it too. So at first I had the kick just going like normal, like this. And that's hard, honestly. But then I came in and I added another patcher stack. And really the important thing to pay attention to is just this reverb setting right here. So if we turn it on, here's what it sounds like. And then I added this like space case effect right here, which is from the 14 drum kit volume 1 actually. So you'll get that and volume 2 as soon as you join my email list. If you already have it, you already know this effect pretty well. So you'll give it a listen. And as the convolution swells on, it goes so well with this effect. And I'll show you some of the effects I added to it. Basically just outer space is the main one here. So you already know how it goes. Some high passing. I added outer space, which is just a tape delay effect, and I synced all of the playheads of the delay so that it would kind of like make the space case effect kind of like keep going in like delay iterations. So this is what it sounds like with no effects. It just doesn't like go out as much, but with that outer space on top of adding this radiator preset and then adding another VHS preset from RC20, it gives it just more life, and it allows it to blend better with the track. So if we give that another listen, helps with that build. That's some superhero shit, dog. So that's the entire thing. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope you learned something from it. If you have any questions, ask me down below. I like answering questions, especially when they're very, very good questions. You can listen to the full track. It'll be linked down below. It literally just dropped today. Check it out. Let me know what you think. I'd greatly appreciate your support. And shout out to all the members of Dope, the homies in my label. They make it possible for me to drop this content. I feel Void is in Dope, and I appreciate him for linking up with me for this drop. Me and Dougie just dropped some stuff like a couple weeks ago. It's really going up over there. Me and Five have a dope song coming with a big artist in South Africa. A lot of good stuff going on there. Shout out to every single member. I love you guys. If you want to learn more about how you can join my label, check out the first link in the description below. Again, I appreciate your attention. I love you. I'm gone.